High stakes, heart-pounding moments, pressure like you wouldn't believe, almost flops, and moments that I will always remember. This is the Nick Solomon Show, the Sports Strata Podcast. Let's get it started.
Spokes to scores! Watford for the win! Yeah! You can't make this stuff up, folks.
God, that all young guys should really take back and look at what this man has done.
Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of the Nick Solomon Show, the Sports Strata Podcast. I'm excited because this episode is going to be a real treat for you guys here. I'm absolutely stoked to be able to bring back another guest onto the show. And at the time of this recording, it is a little bit out of order to when this will actually air. But without further ado, I'm excited to bring back Reilley Johnson. Check out this clip. Well, guys, welcome into a very special segment of the Nick Solomon Show. I am pleased to be joined once again by Reilley Johnson. Maybe familiar with him again. He was on the Nick Solomon Show, episode 3, I believe.
It's been a minute.
It's been a minute. A lot has changed in the show since then, but I'm glad that he's been able to find time out of his busy schedule to come and join me for another great episode here. So, Reilley, appreciate you coming on here and spending the time here. There's a lot of just great athletes in the world right now. And sometimes it could be hard to pay attention to them all, but a lot of them stand out, especially since, over the whole entire time that there has been sports and everything like that. But what I want to do is sort of ask you, who are your top 5 athletes? Let's be more specific, though, because there's a ton of athletes. That's such a big, loaded question.
There's a ton.
So we'll keep it to sort of your generation. So, Reilley, who are your top 5 athletes of your generation? Break it down to us.
Absolutely. Top 5, it's not the easiest list or, a list that everyone's going to have the same list. But, I'll start with number 5. And my 5th one on my list is, and like I said, not everyone's going to agree with my opinion, but number 5 for me would be Tom Brady. I think Tom Brady is one of the greatest QBs, one of the greatest athletes of all time. I think, everyone on this list, if there's a common theme, they're all one of the greatest athletes of their sport. So it's like hard to rank them 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But, Tom Brady, he's got 7 Super Bowls. I mean, he was dominant for, the majority and almost all of his career. He won MVP 5 times. For me and my generation, Nick's as well, he's the greatest QB of all time, as much as I don't like to admit that, just because, he played for the Patriots, but at the same time, you can't deny greatness, because now that he's retired, it's one of those things where it's like, man, I'm sad he's gone, because he was so good for so long. Looking at kind of his stats, his career over a period of, the time that he was in the league for regular season and playoff, he holds a lot of those records, if not almost all of them, and it's very hard for anybody to catch those records or beat those records. I mean, I know we talk about Patrick Mahomes and other QBs that, if there's, a few players out there that could break it, maybe those are the ones. But, he's been in the league for so long, he's so dominant for so long that it's hard to break those records. But then, kind of like my last point on just him in general, is he was the best player for more than a decade. There wasn't another QB. There were other QB mentions, but there wasn't like, hey, who's in the same category as Tom Brady? So that's me personally why I listed him at number 5. And then, do you want me to give all of mine and then you're going to give yours?
Absolutely.
Or did you want to go back
Just
and
get
forth?
into all your top 5.
Yeah, absolutely. So for number 4, I put Michael Phelps. Michael Phelps was one, and if not one of the greatest swimmers of all time. Let me look at my notes here. So going off his records as well, he's got 28 gold medals. That's a lot of gold medals. Putting USA on his back. In 2008 he won 8 gold medals, and he did 8 events, and he won all gold medals in those events. So very dominant in 2008, and even for that he broke world records as well. And like I said, with all these records, and I think it goes into each and every single person that they hold a lot of records. That's why they're on this list, and who's going to be able to break it, I don't know. Maybe those records will never get broken. But kind of like I said, they put the swimming world kind of on notice. I didn't watch the Olympics or too much about swimming, but then when Michael Phelps came in the game, I was like, man, this guy is dominant, and I like watching swimming. He's one of the athletes that changed the swimming game forever, and so that's why I have him at number 4. At number 3, I've got Serena Williams. Serena Williams, one of the greatest tennis players of all time. I think personally she's the greatest. Let's see here. I think she's the greatest tennis player of all time, men's or women's. Going off stats and statistics once again, because you kind of got to have that a little bit to why you rank them where you did. She has 23 Grand Slams. That's a lot of Grand Slams. It's not 1, it's not 5, it's not 7 Super Bowls. 23 Grand Slams. Not only that, but she paved the way for women in tennis. Also with her sister as well. I mean, she was a little bit more dominant than her sister. That's why I didn't put her / her sister on here. But another great point, which signifies why she's the greatest tennis player of all time, is in 2002 she was the number 1 player in the world for 57 weeks straight. I don't know how many months that is, but that's a lot of months. To be to keep that reputation, to keep that how much pressure she has, and to perform at a high level like that. So there's my number 3. Now we get into my top 2. Originally I had these flipped, but then when I thought about it, I was like, you know what? This is who I want to put where. For number 2, I want to put Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods is one, if not the best golf player in my eyeballs. Obviously, depending on generations, a lot of people say Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer, things like that. But, just to go off his statistics as well, he won the Masters 5 times. Masters is also coming up here. So, and he'll compete in that one. Can he go for 6? He won 4 PGA championships. He also, in 2001, became the first golfer to hold all 4 professional majors. So that's a huge accomplishment for that. He also was able to hold the number 1 player in the world, even longer than what Serena was able to, for 281 weeks. I see stats and statistics all the time. No one's ever going to catch that record. 281 weeks, that's an insane amount of time to just be like, is anyone ever going to catch that? Like I said, you can hold that dominance and greatness for so long. And then just kind of my last stat on him is he has 15 major championships. That's only second behind Jack Nicklaus. So he's number 2 in major championships, but number 1 in my eyeballs. Now my last one, I guess, go from 5 to 1 is LeBron James. You can't deny the greatness that he's able to do on and off the court. And the notes that I have on him is I think he's the greatest player of our generation. I know people say Michael Jordan, things like that, but he's got the most points in NBA history. We've never seen anybody like him before, and for how long he's been doing it in the NBA and how he's conditioned his body. He's the only player to score 40,000 points. He broke Kareem's record. No one ever thought Kareem's record was going to get broken, and he's breaking these records. But then, off the court as well, he opened up the I Promise School, paving a way for kids to go to college and, really affecting the game outside of basketball. And if you're able to do that, I think that's why, me personally, I put him at number 1. And I'm super excited to hear about Nick's list and everybody else's list because, everyone's got different reasons. But this is my top 5 athletes of my generation. And, it wasn't an easy list, but it was a fun list to go through.
Yeah, that's a fantastic list that you put on there. I mean, we'll put the list back on the screen here real quick. So you had Tom Brady, Michael Phelps, Serena Williams, Tiger Woods, and then LeBron James as your number 1 athlete. Yes. I mean, no one could really argue against that list. I mean, you're talking about you have some of the GOATs of their sport on that list there, of your generation, or some people would argue of all time even. So I'll first start off by saying we are extremely lucky that we live in a time to where we're witnessing a lot of these goats in person. So a lot of people talk about, Wilt from the 60s, and Muhammad Ali from the 70s, 80s, as just goats and champions of their time period. But we didn't get to see them. We didn't get to enjoy in that experience. But there's a lot of athletes that are being considered the GOATs, or by the time they're actually retired, will be the greatest of all time in their respective sport. We get to say to our grandkids one day, hey, we got to see them live. I mean, not just one or two, so many that you just listed there.
There's so many more I didn't even name.
Yeah, so many more that you absolutely could have named.
Wow.
So I would say from your list compared to my list, we're actually very similar on the same exact players, except one or two. Actually, just one player on our list is the only one that we don't have. But other than that, we have the same exact players, just in different orders.
Yeah.
So I will go ahead and give my top 5 athletes of my generation. So number 5, I have Michael Phelps. Why? 28 medals in total of the Olympics. Okay. Of the 28, 23 are gold medals, which is more than double of the next Olympic athlete. That's one Olympic athlete. Okay. He's been to 5 total Olympics, which I believe is either tied or the most by any Olympic athlete, period. 5. That spans 20 years.
Wow.
20 years. Okay. But I have 4 other people above him. So number 4, Jimmy Johnson. The NASCAR racer, Jimmy Johnson is number 4. Why? He is the only professional race car driver to be named the Associated Press Male Athlete of the Year. The only race driver. Forget of the type of racer. The only one to be named Associated Male Press Athlete of the Year. He's a 7-time Cup Series champion, which is tied with Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt.
I didn't even think about NASCAR.
And well, many people might not think that they're the athletes, but they are athletes. I mean, you're sitting in a car for 3-4 hours in hot times of the year, and the track only elevates the heat of that, going 100, 200 miles an hour in an oval or diamond or street racing.
Yeah.
Over and over and over again. I mean, without having to go to the bathroom. I mean, first of all, they have fantastic stamina to be able to do all that, but you got to give a lot of love, a lot of credit to those athletes that have to endure all of that, because it does take some personal will. So, to me, Jimmy Johnson is my 4th greatest player, or athlete that I grew up witnessing. Number 3, we have LeBron James. He is in year 20, and he is still going. The other 2 athletes I mentioned, Michael Phelps, Jimmy Johnson, they're both retired from their respective sports. LeBron James is still going in year 20, and he hasn't looked like he is slowing down one bit. He's still averaging over 25 points per game for the 19th year in a row, 20th year in a row of averaging 25 plus points per game. Probably more. I'm not sure exactly how much he overed, but for his whole entire career, he's averaged over 20 points per game. And he doesn't look like he is topping down. And he's had some injuries, but the injuries hasn't derailed him. Like, we've seen Vince Carter play for 20-something years. Dirk played for 20-something years. You could see a decline as they got past year 15, 16, 17, 18. There hasn't been a decline in LeBron whatsoever. He's a 4-time regular season MVP. He's a 4-time NBA champion. He's a 4-time MVP of the finals. As you mentioned, he's an all-time leading scorer, and that number is just continuing to increase because he's still playing. He's broken other numerous records. He's also one of the top 5 in assists.
LeBron James.
He may be close as far as rebounds are concerned as well, just clear numbers.
Right.
But he's also been an all-star in 19 of the 20 years he's been in the league, and there could be a good argument that he should have been an all-star his rookie year. Right. So LeBron James as my 3rd favorite player. Number 2, I have Serena Williams. You highlighted her absolute dominant accomplishments. I'll just take another step forward. She revolutionized women's tennis. Not just for female tennis players, African-American female tennis players, and African-American athletes for women everywhere across the world. her dominance came at a time to where the tennis was already sort of where it was at ranking-wise as far as viewership is concerned. She took it to a whole nother level with her style of playing as well, the aggressive nature, and that aggressive nature led her to 23 Grand Slam titles, which is more than anyone or man during her time period. Not only that, I know you had mentioned her stats as being the number one player in the world. So I don't know if your stats man is different than my stats man, but the one I have is that she spent 186 weeks as the number one ranking woman, which equates to over 3.5 years as the number one women's tennis player during her time, which is somewhere around one of the highest marks of women in tennis, being ranked number one. Okay, her greatness not only is on the court for tennis, but it stands off as well. She's also just a fantastic mother as well. And I don't want to take away from the credit of her sister, her older sister, who she actually won a Grand Slam title before her older sister did as well. And she's younger by a few years as well. But that all leads to my number one athlete. And for a lot of you who may know me and for my other episodes as well, know how huge of a football fan I am, huge of a Colts fan I am. So to utter this person's name may seem like they're blasphemous coming out here, but my greatest athlete of my generation is Tom Brady. Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. I hate this dude so much. He's bounced my Colts out of the playoffs too many times, has beat him in the playoffs too many times. I hate him coming onto the field as someone to play against. But he has my utmost respect. Because I know if he has the ball, forget his opponent, if he has the ball with a chance to win, there is a great percentage that he is going to win in the game. No matter what you throw at him.
Yeah.
His IQ, his ability to control the offense in clutch moments, like you know it's going to happen. Whether it's a field goal or a touchdown, like you know it's going to happen. If you stop him, you got luck. That's how I view it. I've seen it enough times to where I know Tom Brady has this ball, regardless regular season or postseason or Super Bowl, he's going to win you that game.
Just turn off the TV at that point.
Yeah, just do what Peyton Manning did. Just put your hands together and pray. He doesn't need another one. Let someone else do it.
Right.
Speaking of which, he is a 7-time Super Bowl champion, 2 more than any other player. He's a 5-time Super Bowl MVP. He is the regular season and playoff passing leader. Okay, his playoff record is 35-13. New England Patriots as a franchise have 37 playoff wins.
Wow.
Tom Brady alone has 35 playoff wins. New England, before Tom Brady came to the franchise, has made it to the Super Bowl in '95. That's their other 2 playoff wins in their franchise history. Tom Brady is responsible for like 97 or 98% of their playoff victories as a total.
He is that franchise.
He has more playoff wins than 30 other NFL teams. The only team that has more playoff wins as a franchise than he does is the San Francisco 49ers.
Okay.
New England is number 2 with 37, and he's responsible for 35. But his 35 alone would probably put him at 3rd, above all 30 other NFL franchises. Insane numbers. I could go on and on about just the accolades that Tom Brady has done, but not just that. Not only did he win the statistical category, the Super Bowl category, also wins the longevity category. Dude played for 20 years as well, 20 NFL seasons at quarterback. During a time where the rules were different, where you could probably touch up a quarterback a lot more.
Yeah.
But even when the NFL transitioned to more of a passing league, you still got to produce, you still got to throw the ball, you still got to avoid tackles. Like him standing in the pocket, his sack rate for the amount of years he's been in is absolutely mind-boggling. The amount of less sacks that he's been able to take. Like, a lot of times later in his career in New England, the way they would win games is death by small cuts. So 5-yard ins all the time. You know it's coming. So you can't even get to the quarterback because the ball will be out in 1 second or less, basically.
Right, less than 2 seconds.
And you could prepare your defense to press man up. He would still get the ball out, and it would still be completed on time. Tom Brady isn't known for having the strongest arm, but his arm, his football IQ, his feel of the game is sort of unmatched than I have ever seen in my life. And I don't think I'll ever witness a quarterback. Maybe we might see stats similar.
Yeah.
But witness how a quarterback operates in the game is just unparalleled. So, again, I'll put my top 5 back on the screen here with Michael Phelps, Jimmy Johnson, LeBron James, Serena Williams, and Tom Brady as my top 5 athletes of our generation. Again, we have some of the GOATs as ours. The only person is I have Jimmy Johnson, you have Tiger Woods. All of these people, there's so many people we could have listed more in other sports as well.
I agree.
Or even of the same sports too. And again, none of us, Michael Jordan did still play with us being alive here, okay? We're not that young, guys.
Yeah.
But our memory is more so of a LeBron, a Kobe era in basketball. So that is why someone like Michael Jordan isn't on our list here.
Correct.
Because again, there are so many great players in the history of all sports to when they all started. Gosh, one could say, I mean, racing's the sport, and racing's gone on since medieval times. So, I guess you could have put horses in this thing if you wanted to do Seabiscuit, if someone wanted to, as an athlete. I don't know. But
Like
we're
hockey's
talking,
not on here. We didn't put soccer on. You know what I'm saying? There's other sports that...
Absolutely. I mean, we're not going to spin this out to the top 10, because even putting people in the top 10, you're going to leave people out.
Yes.
Even if you limit the amount of time frame that you give, I mean, there's still just great. So we want to give love out to these 5 and 6 people that we've put out on our list and everything.
Absolutely.
But speaking of athletes, speaking of professional athletes here, there's a big change when they go from high school to college to the professional sport in terms of how they carry themselves.
Yeah.
A lot is made nowadays of if an athlete does something charitable, how that's highlighted, how that's blasted on all social media accounts. Also, if they do something negative, have a felony against them, DUI, cheats the game, that is still highlighted in almost the same amount, if not more. So my question, Reilley, to you is, do you think professional athletes have too much ego or just the right amount of ego for what they do?
Not an easy question to answer because I'm not a professional athlete. I pretend I am sometimes, but I would say it's like too much ego for the amount of like for what they go through. Like when you hear, like when I think of like all these great players that we just listed, all of them, I would say all of them are very humble. Like I wouldn't say any of these players have like a big ego where it's like, yeah, I don't like any of them because they had such a big ego. If you don't like any of them, it's because they were so good at their sport. With the way that things, like you said, the way that things are changing now, NIL deals, how much money they're making, not wanting to be on this team or that team, like dictating instead of just being humble about it. Like I get to play a professional sport that I dreamed of as a child, and no matter where I end up, like I'm just happy that I get to continue doing something that I love and that I'm passionate about. So I would say most athletes out there now have too much ego, but there are still those ones who are very humble and are thankful that they are where they are because they've had a better upbringing, I guess I would say, than letting it all kind of go to their head.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's one of those where we want to tread lightly because neither one of us are professional athletes, so it's hard to be in their shoes and see what they go through. We might have an understanding of maybe their background, maybe where they come from, but again, we haven't gone through, Richie Rich stage or project stage, and all the different challenges and difficulties, and maybe ease of access and resources to some of these athletes, professional athletes have have the ability or not the ability to get that have influenced their mind by the time that they get to a professional athlete stage. Professional athletes are kind of considered in the same line as celebrities. They're treated like celebrities.
They are, yeah.
They get paid like celebrities. They live like celebrities.
Mm-hmm.
So, a lot can be said as far as how that influences your mind and where that puts you.
It's life-changing money.
It is life-changing money. A lot of it is influenced by the money that they get. So, do I think that athletes have too much ego or just the right amount? I have to probably go just the right amount. I mean, money is probably the number one influence into how someone views themselves. How much right that they believe that they should have and everything. Which is a totally different conversation if we believe that they have the right to assume things or be entitled to certain things because of said status. But I think that the fact that I think certain professional like NFL or NBA, MLB, MLS, women's professional athletic leagues, that they make it standard that you do something charitable. Like it is a part of you joining our shield, joining our organization. Even if you're a standalone athlete, if you're golf, if you're swimming, someone who gets sponsors to continue their professional sport, it's sort of in their deal to do something charitable, to do something outside of something just for themselves. A lot of it is an image thing as well. You want to seem like you're a good person. And a lot of these players, I don't know if they would do something charitable if they weren't maybe forced to do it. Would a lot of them be selfish in that way? I don't know. It is hard to say. But I will say that, I think they have exactly the right amount of ego for their sort of status, if you want to say that and everything. But essentially that's going to lead into our last topic here. When we talk about entitlement and all that, regardless, so the sports that have a draft, so the NFL, the NBA, the WNBA, MLS, the NWSL, NHL, MLB, all of the sports that have a professional draft. Do you think collegiate athletes, or for some sports like MLB, they can draft out of high school?
Yeah.
Do you think the athletes that declare for a draft should have a say in where they are drafted at, or should they just be happy on where they land? What say you, Reilley?
I mean, I can speak from a personal perspective. I can't speak for everybody, but I would say, honestly, be happy that you are getting drafted. Like I said, it kind of goes back to my comment earlier where it's like, you're just humble and you're happy to be in the position that you are. Like, you're happy enough that you didn't get that your career didn't get ended in high school or college because of an injury. Like, you're still able to play the sport that you love and you're passionate about, even if you go to a team like, because I've thought about this question before too, because I'm like, man, if I was the number one pick or whatever pick I was and the Patriots wanted to draft me, because I didn't like the Patriots because of Tom Brady, I'm like, I would never go play for the Patriots. But then when you really reflect on it and you think about it, you're like, I may not like the Patriots, but this is an opportunity in my life that I get to continue. So like, you take the experience you get with that, and it's, I don't know, I feel like it kind of relates to like the job and like your everyday life. Like, I may not like the job that I'm at now or this job, but I got the experience, and then so now I get to go to a job that I like. Same way with an NFL team, MLB, NBA team, and then you get to, like, yeah, I got drafted by the 76ers. Man, I don't want to play for them, but like, I played for 3 or 4 years, and now I get to go to a team. You know what I'm saying? Like, everything happens for a reason in life, and I just think that you should be humble enough to be like, okay, I've learned my experience. This is what it is. I know what I do and don't want from my team, from an organization standpoint. So whatever team I go to next in free agency or trade and stuff like that, I know how I want it to go. Or you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like you have more of a say after you get drafted, not like before you get drafted. But I know that with the NIL, things like that, a lot of players are like, well, I don't really want to get drafted by this team, so let me just stay another year. And it's like, you can do that, that's fine. Maybe that prompts you to have a higher draft stock. Maybe that prompts you to have a lower draft stock. But at the end of the day, I think you get to do what you love for a little bit longer. So if it was me, I would personally be happy with whatever team I went to. But, everyone's got their own opinions and are entitled to.
Yeah, and the reason that this is sort of brought to light is by the Colorado head football coach, Deion Sanders. He essentially went and conducted an interview, or was interviewed, and during the interview he stated a line on his 2 star players, one of which being his own son, basically saying that they're going to be top picks in next year's draft, which is fine, you should support your players, but also saying that, we're going to have a say on where they get drafted to, because there's some NFL cities that just aren't going to be it. And to me, that kind of strikes a chord, and to very much what you just said is, just because you feel like you're a top prospect doesn't mean that you're entitled to say where you get to play at.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll use the analogy of this. So during World War II, the government drafts men and women, majority men, to go and fight for their country. You do have a choice to whether or not you're going to go and serve for your country. Now, if you say no, understand that the punishment is jail time, and honestly, probably the government make it a living hell for you to go forward in your life, being an outcast, writing you off as this,
Mm-hmm.
future, things would be difficult. So, these players, let's just say, for example, Caleb Williams. Okay, as example, this is not true. Nothing I've heard. I'm not connected to him in any way. I'm just using this purely as an example here. But let's say Caleb Williams did not want to go to Chicago. Just pure blank. Doesn't want to play for them. Doesn't want to go to the city. Fine. He can say that. He's entitled to his opinion. Chicago can still draft him. He can pout all he wants. His punishment for not playing is you're going to sit on the bench. Not going to get paid. So are you willing to lose out on the opportunity of playing, lose out on a lot of money, sit there and pout because you're not happy on where you're drafted? It is we'll keep it in the NFL, or any sport period, it is a privilege to be drafted by any team. Just because of how good you are in high school or in college does not deem you the right to state where you want to get drafted. You could still have a wish list on where you would love to be at. Okay, I'm not saying that every team would be the right for you, and that's up to the organization to see if you would even be a right fit for them. Maybe you want to go to Cleveland, but maybe Cleveland's not right for you.
Right.
And we all have our favorite teams, but there's also what works for you. How am I going to be the most successful? Or maybe, if an organization fails you, then that's the organization. You don't put it into your hands, because by you saying, I'm going to go play for Cleveland only, and then Cleveland drafting you, and you flame out in Cleveland, all fingers are going to get pointed to you. You don't get to go back in time. You don't get to redo it. You're way behind. It may ruin your career. So I understand something where you're going to pull an Eli Manning. I still look back at that and frown upon that. Who knows if him playing for the Chargers at the time would have been fine compared to him playing for the Giants. Now, hindsight, he won 2 Super Bowls with the Giants. He's probably considered the greatest quarterback in Giants history. But do it all again, maybe he would have had more success with the Chargers instead of Phillip Rivers, who basically he got traded for. So I don't think you get to have a say in where you get to be drafted at.
Mm-hmm.
It's up to the organization to make sure that you're the right fit for them. Now, again, I'm with Deion as far as him supporting his players, him boosting his players up, wanting them to get drafted high, because there's a huge financial difference between if you're drafted number 3 overall or if you're drafted 23rd overall.
Yeah.
Even though you might be still a first-round pick, there's still a significant money difference. So even if money wasn't an option, then just say they'd be happy to enter the draft regardless of where they're picked, as long as they're picked where they want to get picked at, basically,
Yeah.
or a team that fits them perfectly.
And who doesn't say you get traded after you get drafted? Stuff happens all the time.
Exactly like that, which is what the NBA does. currently. Like, they'll draft a player and then trade him right away.
Yeah.
Because they'll draft him for another team that they might have done a deal during draft day and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So what bothers me as we are in an age now of more player empowerment, which I'm here for, but more of a 50-50 standpoint, because I understand the organization's standpoint, and it is their business. You are an employee, you know. You get paid by this organization, by this entity, to go and perform for them. They have the right to keep you or to fire you if they want to say, or you done such a great job, we're going to give you a salary increase. We're going to give you a raise by this extended contract. You're not... To have the mindset of, it's a privilege for me to be in your presence, basically, is not the mindset that any collegiate or high school athlete needs to have going into professional organization. So that is where both of us stand as far as if athletes should just be happy if where they're drafted, or if they should have the right. So what say you? Please list down in the comments below on if you feel that athletes should have a say or shouldn't have a say on where they're drafted. Who are your top 5 athletes of your generation? And do you think there's too much ego or just the right amount of ego? Reilley, I appreciate your time coming in again. You know, we're just about at the end of time for you, but I appreciate you making the time in your busy schedule to come and be a part of my podcast. So thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you next time.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Wow. Thank you so much again, Reilley, taking the time to come and film another episode of the Nick Solomon Show, the Sports Chatter podcast. I loved the information. I love the vibe. I love your own take on our important questions that we had. So thank you guys again for watching another episode here, and I look forward to seeing everyone next time. Take care.